Bike Social, I'm John. You join me on the launch of the new Ducati Diavel 1260. So rather than record all this at the end of the day in front of the Ducati PRs, I'd rather take you through the day. You follow me, come with us on this, and I'll stop every chance I get, and we'll really get to find out what this machine's really like. So we've just had a quick stop and it's so cold, it's absolutely freezing. It was raining on the way up, just wasn't a chance to try the bike at all. I stayed in touring mode. Gotta say, in that kind of weather, the throttle is, when you're just off the throttle and just came back on, it's a very sharp uptake, as you'd expect for a big V-twin. To be fair, probably for a V-twin this big, probably not as bad as it could be, but it's not a kind of bike I'd want to ride a long way in the rain in. But certainly traction control works, so hopefully it looks like it's going to dry up. We'll get a bit of better weather, get a bit more of an enjoyable ride now. Right, that's better. It makes a hell of a lot more sense. We've got some dry roads and this thing flies. It explodes out of corners when you drive it. It's just, yeah, it's powerful. It's not, it doesn't want to lift. Like I own an MT10 and it doesn't want to keep coming up or something like that. It just wants to, if you properly nail it in second, it just wants to spin the back up. But never feels out of control, never feels dangerous. It's well controlled, but God, this thing's rapid. And that quick shift is making more sense now. Just being a bit more positive with it, it definitely feels a lot better. But still that throttle, very on off. This isn't a relaxing bike to ride. So we've just broken for lunch. I'm here with Stefano Tarabusi. He's the product manager for the Diavel. So I want to ask a few questions. Stefano, first of all, this second generation of Diavel, it's got a new chassis, hasn't it? It's 10mm longer wheelbase, slightly different rake. You've moved the suspension. Can you tell us more about why you've done that and what it means?
Sure. The first generation of Diavel was already a great bike in terms of handling and riding performance, riding pleasure. But we want this new generation to be even better. So we changed completely the chassis. Even if the design recalls clearly the previous generation of Diavel, the chassis is brand new. First of all, we moved the engine a little bit closer to the rear wheel. Because while in the first generation of Diavel we had the radiators, the water radiator that were on the side of the engine, in this generation of the Diavel we have the water radiator that is in the front of the engine. What does it mean? It means that the distribution of weight is very close to 50% and 50% front to rear. So this also made us a little bit increase in terms of wheelbase, because we have a wheelbase that is a little bit longer, but the bike has a better handling because we reduced the rake and the trail in comparison with the previous one. This means that the bike is more reactive, the handling is more direct, and well, this kind of modification moves the Diavel closer to a very big, very performing sport naked than a cruiser. So this changes a lot the behavior on the road of the bike. Another very important modification was the change in terms of position for the rear suspension, because in the previous generation of Diavel we had the suspension that was below the rear swing arm. Okay, in this case we wanted to move the suspension on top of the swing arm, because below the swing arm we have the big muffler that now is below and almost invisible. Below the swing arm almost invisible, while in the previous generation it was on the side of the bike. All of these changes increase and make better the dynamic performance of the bike. As I said, already the first generation of Diavel was great in terms of handling, but this time I think that we have made a very big step forward.
Well, it's certainly been impressive in the morning, even with this massive rear tyre. It handles, it doesn't feel like, I know this is a sports street cruiser. It doesn't handle like a cruiser. Now, the engine is the same engine from the X Diavel, isn't it? And it's got the DVT, Ducati variable timing. That's really important to this engine, isn't it? Tell us more about it.
Yes, the DVT is a device that really changes completely the behavior of the engine. We introduced it for the first time on the Multistrada 1200, and then on the Diavel for this displacement 260cc. This engine is super enjoyable thanks to the DVT because the DVT changes the behavior of the engine according to the RPM. There is a sort of hydraulic system that changes the angular position of the camshafts both for the intake valve and for the exhaust valve. It means that the timing of the valves, especially the overlap between the timing of the intake valve and the exhaust valve, changes continuously, moving from low RPM to high RPM. When you are at low RPM, the overlap between the intake valve and the exhaust valve opening is very small. It means that the engine is very smooth and very regular, giving you a lot of pleasure and a lot of torque at low RPM. While you go up with the RPM, then the overlap between the two openings of the valves gets higher and higher, making the engine sportier and sportier and giving you those 159 horsepower. I mean, Italian horsepower. Let's go with them. CV. The 159 CV. That is a very high power and a lot of torque even at high RPM. So you have a sort of perfect engine at any RPM. With the ideal overlap between the opening of the intake valve and the exhaust valve.
It is a seamless system. I mean, riding up here, you don't feel a step like you can with some systems that you feel that slight change. But yeah, it's very clever. And on the other Ducatis, it's been brilliant. So there's a lot of more electronic technology in this, isn't it? You've got corner ABS, which I love, and you've moved the traction control and things like that on with this machine.
Yes, obviously, 8 years have passed since we launched the first generation of Diavel, and 8 years for Ducati in terms of electronics development is a very, very long time. We made a lot of development, really important in terms of safety and riding pleasure. So the electronics package for this bike is absolutely full, as it is for any Ducati top of the range bike. And in terms of safety, we have cornering ABS that for us is really the ABS for motorcycle because it is the perfect ABS for motorcycle. It is not an ABS like the ABS for cars. That was the first generation of ABS that was something not so perfect for motorcycle, but the cornering ABS is something that really changes the level of safety of a bike. Then we have all the other systems that are Evo version. We call it like this because they are a step forward in terms of development of the algorithm, of the logic of working, and so on. The traction control, the wheelie control. Then we have the power launch for very quick start at the street light. There are other very important electronics devices like the quick shift that we think that improves a lot the riding pleasure because you can avoid the use of forget the use of the clutch in upshift and in downshift. So it's really enjoyable, and even if the engine is so smooth and regular that you do not have to change that much gear very often, okay, but also even if it is so regular and so smooth, you forget anyway the use of the clutch because you have the quick shift up and down, so it's improves a lot the riding pleasure of the bike. Then you have many other things like, for example, the Ducati multimedia system, full LED lighting, cruise control, backlit handlebars. Yes, the package is absolutely full, and we really think that nowadays it is fundamental for a bike with this level of power, with this level of torque, with this level of performance, to have all these electronic systems that really are a very, very big step forward in terms of safety for in all the conditions and for any rider. And Ducati gets all the experience from Ducati Corse because we always start the electronics development in Ducati Corse for the races, okay, and then all these devices they come down to the different mass production models, starting obviously for the top of range, but really think that this movement of technology, starting from Ducati Corse to the mass production bikes, is something that is a huge added value for our bikes, and we really think that is the way to go also for the future. And one thing that I really think it is very important also always to underline is that the electronic systems like the traction controls, the wheel controls are completely developed by Ducati. So we do not buy a system by an external supplier, but we do develop this system all internally, also in terms of algorithm. For us, it takes a lot of time, resources, money, but it is very important because year after year, all these systems are improved and gets much, much better. For example, the traction control lever that we have on this bike is one of the traction control that is most sophisticated on the market because it gets information from the IMU. We have a 6-axis IMU on this bike. This is the latest generation of IMU, inertial measurement unit. Okay, and so the traction control works according to the leaning position of the bike. So it changes the algorithm of working according to the leaning angle, and then it works together with the wheel control, for example. So the wheel control knows what the traction control is doing, and the traction control knows what the wheel control is doing. So they work together. And another very important feature of our traction control is the smoothness. It works, but you do not feel it. And we think that this is really something important because it is very dangerous when something happens and you do not understand what the bike is doing. We do want to avoid this kind of phenomenon. And really think that with this traction control that works with two different strategies working together, working on the inject on timing, on the spark timing, but also on the throttle opening. So it works on many different levels in order to be as smooth as possible, but as effective as possible at the same time. And really think it makes a difference. It makes a difference if you compare it to the traction control that we had, for example, a few years ago. It is really something that works much, much better.
Well, I mean, on the way up here, we had a chance to try that out in the wet, and certainly it's not something that suddenly shuts the bike down, and especially on a big twin like this, that's not what you want. But no, I've been enjoying it. I'm going to take it out again. So thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Cheers. Thank you. This bike's insanely powerful. 157 brake horsepower. It's just drives. It is more like a drag bike. It's not got that kind of violent feel of something like the MT10 that I own. It just pulls and pulls. But while we're here, while we've had a bit of break, I thought we'd have a quick look around and just have a look at some of the details and what makes this a premium motorcycle. So there's no denying that the Diavel is an expensive bike. The S model that we're riding here is nearly £20,000, but it does have a really good level of finish. And there's no plastic tank here, this steel tank. Really lovely shape to it, really good finish, and come down to these air intakes, all brushed aluminium, really nice looking. Brushed aluminium here as well. It has got this good level of finish. Now of course on this, the S model, you've got full Öhlins suspension and these Brembo M50 calipers. You've got the M4.32s on the standard bike, still monoblock calipers, still good strong brakes. Looking around a little bit here, this panel gap just changed slightly here. I'm being picky, but at this price I feel I'm allowed to be picky. So moving on to the engine, we've got this new frame here. Used to come further back and used to see the exhaust all over the side on the old Diavel. Now we've got this shorter frame, the engine's a stress member on here, and the exhaust runs all the way underneath the bike. Really impressive how they've got this collector box here. If you have a look underneath, you'll see that the collector box is hidden behind the wheel under the swing arm. Now that's good because looking at it from the side, you just see this really stubby exhaust, really good bit of finish there. Got to say, I'm a bit disappointed with the plastic covers over the belts here. I'd like to see some aluminium ones. I mean, this kind of cost. You've got this lovely brushed aluminium here. Just seems a shame to see some plastic here, but still, whole package is good looking, especially when you move on to the back and get that single-sided swing arm. Just love that. But let's have a look around the other side. So here we've got that big, really big single-sided swing arm. Beautiful bit of engineering there. Lovely cast aluminium swing arm. So with the exhaust underneath now, you can see that they've put the shock up on top. 10mm more of rear wheel travel. The handle's great, you know. I mean, this is the full Öhlins suspension, but it does have handles any imperfections in the road very well. It's quite a firm suspension. It does feel kind of hard, but certainly as you kind of wallow into something that would normally wallow, as you're diving into corners, if the surface changes or you get a bit of a dip there, it soaks up beautifully, as you'd expect. So engine is the 1260 DVT, that's variable timing. The engine's used to, of course, be tuned for either good low-down torque or high rev torque. DVT seamlessly lets you get a good spread of torque throughout, and it is working, it does work. Now if we have a look at that TFT dash, see if you can see it in the light here, there we go, really lovely and clear. We've actually got the lights along the top, and the main dash on there. You can change the display you have. If we go into the menu here, info mode, if I put it onto full, there we go, you get all the display. You can have it so it changes depending on your riding mode or whether you want track settings. There's a lap timer on here. We've also got illuminated switchgear, lovely touch that. It does make it easier in the night to be able to find where you're going to put your thumb. Kind of a shame that it doesn't shine through on the writing too, but still, it's a bit easier to find that switchgear. And you've got it the same on this side. We have actually got some sunlight now. Mirrors really effective, don't vibrate, just feels good. There's a nice little touch on the indicators. Let's go and have a look around at them. So these indicators are a 3D blade technology. They're basically very nicely done piece of plastic in there, gives it a lovely shape, and when you see a bike with that indicator, it's really big and clear. So you know, it's a safety feature, but it looks cool too. Now the S model, that's standard on both bikes. The S model has this daytime running light. You don't get that on the standard model. This S model also has quick shifter. That's an up and down quick shifter, which means you can just press down on it to change down, pull up on it to change up. It's good. Now I've found that on 4-cylinder bikes, quick shifters are a lot smoother. On bigger engines, especially on big engine twins, they've got more, it feels like they're working harder. You have to give this a positive press. First time I used it, I found a neutral, but I was being too delicate with it. You just need to confidently and positively push it down, pull it up, and it's good. You do feel the change. It's not a super slick, super smooth change, but that's really the nature of a big old twin like this. It's a 1260 V twin. It's a big old motor. Let's have a look under the seat here, and you can see we've actually got a bit of storage space. Now, it's not massive. You see here from my fist, but maybe you could get a small shackle lock in here if you took it apart. Got a power supply in there though as well, which is a nice touch. You've got a little bit of space to the rear of it as well. Now here, this knob, when you pull that up, that releases the grab rail. Now if I show you that grab rail with the seat back on, you can see lovely sleek tail. Pull it out. It's not a lot to hang on to. I know my wife would probably, she prefers grab rails at the side, but it's something that looks kind of like a cool spoiler too. You need to put the key in to get to that, but yeah, neat little touch. Nice little detail that. There's no denying bikes have got more expensive over the last few years especially. And you know, there are cheaper bikes, there are more expensive bikes, but you are buying a premium motorcycle here. This is Ducati. They are at the premium end of the price range, and there are some beautiful design touches in here, some lovely attention to detail that does make this a machine that you go in your garage, you can really feel proud to own it. So we're back. That was 135, 140 miles we've just done. The bike's outstanding. It's just awesome to ride. When you're on open roads and just threading those bends together, it's awesome. It's properly awesome. The bike's always going to be a compromise. The Diavel is meant to be part sports bike, part naked street bike, part cruiser. The Diavel is a compromise between all of those. But it's not perfect at all of them. If you want to be able to do a bit of everything and do it really well, this is the right bike. It's expensive, but it's just epic. please do comment below and tell us what you think of this bike. Is this the kind of machine you want? Comment below, subscribe. We've got so much varied content on Bike Social. We want you to be a part of it. And the full review of this, which is important, doing a launch and shooting video while you're there, you're reacting very quickly to it. The launch report, you have time to really dwell on it, and you've got the evening to think about everything that's come together. So always take the video with the launch report. It's linked below, and we'll see you on the next one.